Colleagues, good morning, good afternoon. We have already a very good number joining, so we can start, and I'm sure a few others will be coming there. Thank you for joining us for this important event. As you all know, among development issues, one of the most sensitive one, if not the most important one, is related to food and agriculture. But it's the one that creates more discomfort, I would say, when talking about it, because it's directly related to poverty. Food, agriculture are at the root and at the center of humanity, more than any other sector. But I would say regretfully, we are not giving it the attention it requires, not enough attention, certainly not as much as oil, mining, and other sector, where we talk about them very easily politically, economically. And when it comes to food, it's so much related to ethics, humanity, that we have difficulties taking the right action. Still, a lot of work has been done. The EU has been leading this process. We can say it openly. It's not because it's an EU program, but the EU on the food systems has been really leading by example. After, of course, being the bad region when it comes to overconsumption, now drawing lessons, improving situation, and that's why we have now a lot of good policies going on, thanks to the pressure of the consumers who are more and more aware, and the companies taking the right actions. So leading by example, doing a lot, but can do much more for sure. FAO and UNEP, two leading United Nations organizations in this sector with their respective mandate. And they have shown a very close partnership among these two organizations since the campaign of Think, Eat and Save that was launched in 2012, where I was still in UNEP together with my colleague, James Lomax. This has left a lot of legacy behind it. The work is going on. And we can say that it has been the preparatory work to all what you call now the food system, sustainable food system, and definitely a pillar for the food system summit that will be held very soon. But if we are gathered today, it's also a lot thanks to the Switch Asia program. And at the center of this program, we have our colleagues from the Switch Asia in the countries and in the grant project who will be sharing with us what they have achieved so far at their level, maybe a little bit, but it is something of interest to listen, to see how we can scale it up, replicate, and move to the next step. So the focal point from the country, the expert, the grant project will be sharing how Switch Asia is effectively progressing in this very important sector. But working on food issue, as well as on any sustainability issue, needs synergy, partnerships, bringing all the concerned around the same table. And that's why we have invited many partners and experts to join us, to share with us their expertise, their interest, and hopefully developing after that good partnerships. So once again, thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing and contributing your knowledge, your concerns, but also good innovative approaches where we can move further on that. Now, let me give you some keep housing issues before we move on, housekeeping issues. The meeting is recorded. I think you know it all in all these kind of meetings. Of course, it will be shared with you afterwards. This is not something to be kept secret, but it will help us also prepare a brief report. Please make sure to mute your computer or your telephone when you're not speaking, and also for the same for the video, as it makes it heavy. But if the system is fine, we go on. Otherwise, also close your video, but when speaking, please put it on if you want. You have a sign for raising hand, making comments if possible, but also raising hand to intervene directly for the chat. And all the elements, the PowerPoints and so on, will be reflected later on in a link that will be shared with you. The agenda, next on. So the key objectives, as I said here for this meeting, is really to show what Switch Asia has done so far. Of course, we are one actor among others, but it's an important one. Is covering many countries, 24 countries in Asia, has been here for many years. We will be showing just a few examples of what is currently being done. A lot has been done in the previous 10 years, and why it is so important to work in synergy and have partnerships to move further on that together. So the meeting will be in 3 sessions. The first one, which is the opening, next on. The opening that will be led by my colleague Miroslav Bozic from the DG International Partnerships of European Commission, who will introduce his colleagues, and we move further on this brief introduction. Then after that, we will have what we call the core group for this meeting, which are the next session, which are the support we provided to the countries and the grant project, next on. And after that, we will have the panel discussion that will be bringing different experts all together in order to have a brainstorming, really, get on the discussion and see what we can take, not each one of us for something, but we as Switch Asia also, how much can we take from this meeting to improve our work in the remaining period, but also for the next phases of Switch Asia. And again, thank you for joining us, and big thank for the EU for funding this program with this very substantive grant support that they give, which makes this happen in Asia, but also in other regions in the world. Without any further ado, Miro, the floor is yours for the opening session, for your introduction, and then the opening session.
Many thanks, Arab. It was actually already a very excellent introduction. So let me also give warm greetings to all, both in Asia, Europe, and who knows, maybe somewhere else as well. So my name is Miroslav Božić, or actually shortly Miro, and together with Alessandra Lepore, who you know very well, I'm working on the coordination of the Switch Asia program at the HQ level in the DG INPA. However, I have to highlight that Alessandra is still the mastermind of the Switch and chief in charge. I am more helping, let's say, on the Agri-food part of Switch. And from this perspective, I'm certainly excited about today's meeting. Yes, we have such a large number and variety of speakers and participants. And thanks a lot for joining us, for finding time actually to join us today. This is a 4th cluster meeting. And as most of you know, these types of meetings are an important opportunity to actually, for the Switch stakeholders to really improve, as already Arab mentioned, cross-fertilization of their activities and find the synergies, but also looking beyond Switch and looking also to the other partners in the region who are equally engaged on the green transition in this sector. And all this with one objective, actually to make an impact, to make a larger and transformative impact. And clearly the EU is committed to work hand in hand with partner countries and organizations to achieve the EU ambition of building greener and more sustainable societies and economies, where the benefits are equally shared and where none is left behind. You probably know, most of you, that the Commission has adopted the EU Green Deal in December 2019, and this is basically the growth strategy where the EU member states are committed to no net emission by 2050 and where the economic growth is decoupled by resource use. And clearly the EU Farm to Fork strategy, Circular Economy Action Plan, Biodiversity Strategy 2030, they're all part of the EU Green Deal and all of high relevance to the topic of today of the agri-food systems. We will not have time to enter in all of them. We will focus, let's say, more on the EU Farm to Fork strategy, which will be presented later. Just to highlight that European Green Deal is also at the heart of the EU green recovery from the COVID pandemic. And we are certainly eager to promote this principle of green and just recovery in the form of building back better globally also with our partner countries. European Green Deal goals certainly cannot be achieved only within the EU in isolation. And that's why we consider Switch Asia as one of important tools that can offer, that the EU offer to strengthen the collaboration, supporting sustainable consumption and production policies and practices in various sectors, and clearly agri-food sector being flagship, I would say, among them. Arab already mentioned why this sector is so special, but also we see in the number of applicants, number of grants, the number is clearly compared to others, it's prominent. And we also seen in the last call, the most of application actually came from the agri-food sector as well. So voila, this is all for me. I mean, the agenda is quite rich, ambitious, clearly. So let us proceed with the first session, which is, no, sorry, please. And before, just to thank our SCP team for the organization of this meeting. I mean, the agenda is really, really, I think, clearly promising. So let's go to the first session. Look at the regional and global agri-food system policies. Basically, where we'll have three interventions from different perspectives, from the European Commission, from the FAO, and from UNEP. And just to highlight that there will not be time for Q&A in these sessions. However, we have a panel session at the end, and there is not a problem to ask questions also and to discuss in the panel session. However, we are also in the virtual format, so you may also use the chat function as the presentations are going, and you can also put questions in the chat, and maybe they can be answered immediately, or maybe we can take them forward then later in the panel session. So without further ado, let's go with the first intervention on EU Farm to Fork strategy from colleagues from the Commission, Mr. Jan Bloemendaal, Policy Officer in DG Santé, and Mr. Olaf Heidelbach, I hope I pronounced correctly, who is Economic and Policy Analyst in DG Agri, also European Commission. Please, the floor is yours to introduce us briefly the Farm to Fork strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will try to share our presentation. Okay, good afternoon and good morning for some as well. Thank you very much for having me and having us. I will do this together with my colleague Olaf Heidelbach. We are both in the European Commission. My name is Jan Bloemendaal. I'm in DG Santé, the Director General for Public Health and Food Safety. I'm in the part responsible for SPS and in the unit for bilateral international relations. I'm the desk officer for a number of countries who are participating to today's event. Like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan are some of them. So I'm then your contact person within the Commission if it is about SPS matters. And I'm also doing, for instance, the negotiations on agreements, bilateral agreements, cooperation and partnership agreements we have with a number of countries. And also I'm the Secretariat once these agreements enter into force. I will do this together with Olaf, as I said, and I think we only have 10 minutes, so I have to speak quickly. The Green Deal was already introduced by both speakers, and thank you for the introductions, which were very kind and also very, very realistic. And food is indeed a major subject and very important to address also in an international environment. So thank you very much. The Green Deal, which was launched in 2019, as said, is one of the big objectives of this von der Leyen Commission. Von der Leyen is the president of the European Commission. and it sets out how to make Europe the first climate neutral continent by 2050 in order to address the climate challenges we all are aware of, global warming, loss of biodiversity, and others. The Green Deal maps a new sustainable and inclusive growth strategy to boost the economy, improve people's health and quality of life, care for nature, and leave no one behind. And these climate and environmental ambitions of the Green Deal cannot be achieved without making our food systems sustainable. And this is the reason why the farm to fork strategy is at the heart of the Green Deal. The farm to fork strategy, which we will be briefly presenting, mentioned 4 general goals. However, before listening these, I want to stress, though, that the strategy was launched already a year ago. And besides working on it with our member states, we have also reached out to the countries around the EU, or better, our trading partners worldwide, from the beginning, from the onset last year. We have done so in order to inform everybody, all our trading partners, about this new initiative. Also because we need you. These challenges of climate change, they are so major. We cannot do this alone as European Union. We have to work together on this. And also because we want to work together, we have to explore new possibilities and find solutions. And we cannot do this alone. We want to do this together with you. So that's why we have been very open and transparent about this initiative from the beginning. This may also mean that for some of you, this presentation is not new. Maybe you have heard about it before or already have seen some slides before as well. So the strategy goes about goals, ambitions, and said since May last year, the Commission with the Member States has been working on preparing concrete proposals in order to implement these goals. However, we wish to remain in contact with you also in this phase, because between the ambitions launched last year and the moment of presenting our first concrete proposals, to keep you aligned, but also as we remain very receptive of your views, simply because we cannot solve this huge challenge alone. So your ideas remain very welcome. This is what I really want to stress at the beginning of this presentation. Let me move on. This should work. Yeah. So there are four goals, as I said, 4 strategic goals. The first one is to reduce the environmental and climate footprint of the EU food system, produce in a more balanced manner with the nature. Another one is to strengthen, the 4th one on the slide, is to strengthen the resilience, ensure food security in the face of climate change and biodiversity losses, also in crisis recently with COVID. Another one is to lead a global transition, as I said, towards competitive sustainability from farm to fork. And the 4th one is tapping into new opportunities. Given that the number of people on our planet are still increasing, as well as the pressure on our ecosystem, we need to find new ways to produce food in a more sustainable manner. And again, all ideas are welcome, and the EU definitely cannot do this alone. More concretely, the Farm to Fork strategy has put forward a number of goals. We want our future measures to have a neutral, or better even, a positive environmental impact by preserving and restoring the land and sea-based resources, by mitigating climate change and adapting to its impacts, and by reversing the loss of biodiversity. Another major ambition is to ensure food security and public health. We want to create a society in which everyone has access to sufficient, nutritious, and sustainable food. This is the point of poverty, Mr. You just addressed. This is a major issue. We want to ensure high standards of safety and quality, plant health, and animal health and welfare. Of course, we are not starting from scratch. We have already achieved a lot over the last decades. The EU has learned a lot from some major food crises that hit our continent in the 90s. So this is the basis, the solid basis we have to further embark on ways to work towards more sustainable food systems. This requires an integrated approach. This slide shows the huge number of actors in the food field. There are many players involved to make sure that you and I every day have a nice food on our plates. This goes from farmers to supermarkets, but also includes stakeholders that support the production of food, be it on research or on finances or any other areas. Citizens and consumers are at the heart, but the EU very well realizes that we are operating in an international environment. And then the slide also shows the different levels of governments, but the multiple instruments we have at our hand. It's about legislation, about financial incentives, education, research and innovation, procurement, voluntary commitments. Partly it will be voluntary, partly it will be mandatory. And the last one is the green alliances, the partnerships we want to create with our partners worldwide. So what are the sectors we will be working on? And Olaf will say more about this in a minute. Also, with respect to the first bullet, the first box, the EU Common Agriculture Policy. But as regards pesticides, we will decrease the use of pesticides considerably, and by doing so, we have to review the pesticide directive we are having in the EU. Another one is on animal welfare. If we want to establish sustainable food systems, it is important that we care about animals. If we recognize that they are sentient beings, it is important that this is reflected in the way we treat with animals. So we will revise our animal welfare once again, but also try to find international partnerships, also especially on this area. There are other initiatives on the research. Horizon Europe is a research initiative. There's a major issue on labeling. Labeling is important in order to assist consumers to make their own choices. So we will be preparing a proposal for a harmonized mandatory front of pack nutrition labeling to enable consumers to make their choices themselves. So not everything has to be mandatory. Voluntary sometimes works way better. I can be more concrete now on two actions, two overarching actions, and that is that the creation of a legislative framework for sustainable food systems. This framework will contribute to gradually raise sustainability standards. It will set out a set of general principles and requirements on the sustainability of food systems. And the second one is the development of a contingency plan for ensuring food supply and security in times of crisis. Another important goal is to reduce food loss and food waste. Again, seeing the increasing number of people on our planet and the burden this puts on our ecosystems. So we are committed to reach the UN Sustainable Development Goal on halving food waste at retail and consumer levels by 2030, and we will also put proposals to this end forward. We'll put forward proposals to this end. I'm thinking, Olaf, that it's now your turn. Yes, I think it is. I can forward the slides, but I think you should take the floor, Olaf. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Jan, and also a very warm welcome from my side. I'm very happy to reconnect to the region. I've been based in Central Asia for many years, and I've just moved from Sri Lanka to Brussels about a year ago. So I'm very happy to see also former colleagues here. Ashini, hello. I will talk more about the primary production objectives and also the research and innovation part. You have heard in the introduction that we are, or in the previous slides, that we are planning to reduce pesticides, and concretely, the reduction we aim at by 2030 will be 50% of chemical pesticides, and we will focus also on the reduction of more hazardous pesticides. This will, of course, require other pesticides that farmers are allowed to use, because certainly we will not be able to go 100% organic. Another important target is the reduction of nutrient losses by at least 50%, and at the same time we want to keep soil fertility at the same level, so no deterioration of soil fertility. That would reduce the use of fertilizers by at least 20% also by 2030. We are all concerned about human health, not only in times of pandemics, but also as a result of overuse of antibiotics, for example. And we see in the EU alone more than 30,000 deaths every year linked to antibiotics and multi-resistancies and so on. So we are aiming in livestock and aquaculture production to reduce the sales of antimicrobials by 50% as well. Last but not least, we want to increase the land, EU agricultural land under organic farming up to a level of 25%. Very ambitious. But we are on a good way, I would say. We are currently at about 9%, and we have made a lot of progress in the past years. 25% means not that each and every member state has to achieve 25%. Some have actually already achieved it, such as Austria. But it means 25% of EU agriculture area in total, seen as a total. Jan, next slide, please. Yes, you can imagine that without research and innovation, we will not be able to achieve these targets. And we have allocated about 9 billion euros over the next years to Horizon Europe, to research and innovation projects that are linked to Green Deal goals, to the bioeconomy as bioeconomy, agriculture, food safety, and so on. So a lot of resources, and I would like to encourage you also in the universities and research institutions in your countries to participate actively in the Horizon Europe calls together with European partners, because this is the only way forward to develop alternative solutions and innovations to help foster this paradigm shift, actually. We have also partnership on food systems and the European Innovation Partnership. So this is more linked to practitioners, to the farmers, because we need to transport the innovation and research results also directly to the farmers. We have several funds, the Regional Development Fund, Agricultural Fund for Rural Development, that can contribute to this. Part of the Green Deal is also to achieve 100% fast broadband internet in rural areas by 2030. So there will be a lot of investments. And we have investment funds such as InvestEU. Another measure to get the knowledge to the farmers is, of course, advisory services and support to small and medium enterprises. This is it from my side. I think there is a link to the switch projects that you're representing as well. So it's a very good opportunity to link up to you, and I'm happy to reply to your questions in the chat. Thank you, and back to Jan.
Yes, thank you very much, Olaf. I think we have one final slide. I'm also fearing that we are running out of time a bit. the major message of this final slide has already been conveyed, and that is that we want to work together with countries, with our trading partners, with our partners worldwide. The challenges are big. We cannot address these alone. And there's a lot of work to be done in the next years and the next decades. So we want to work together. So we will work through international standard setting bodies like the Codex and promote sustainable food systems in international fora. We are also trying to include narrative texts on sustainable food systems in our bilateral agreements. We have currently discussions with Uzbekistan, with Indonesia. So also to reflect that we want to cooperate on this developing of sustainable systems and promote indeed global transition. Yes, I think that's it for now. Of course, also happy to answer any questions or comments. And I think I should give back to you, Miro. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Jan and Olaf. Yes, it was a clear call for partnerships between the EU and Asia partner countries. And what I think it also was your joint presentation is a kind of reflecting tackling food system challenges is difficult to do in isolation only as the agriculture ministry or only as Santé, public health. There's really need for these integrated approaches, and you, I think, to go cross ministries approach to really go beyond, say, your own area of expertise. So I think this nicely reflects the challenges and the integrated solution that we have to jointly look forward. So now the next we go. There was also call for global transition. Now we go for certainly go globally with the FAO with Mr. Sridhar Dharmapuri, who is the leader of the Agriculture and Food Systems team in FAO Regional Office for the Asia Pacific groups. Mr. Dharmapuri, please, floor is yours for remarks on the challenges and opportunities for the further greening of the agri-value chains and food systems.
Okay, thank you. I'll be brief. I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to give a presentation with many slides. I just have one slide to show, and that is on the framework for sustainable food systems. And that is relevant just to discuss a little bit in the year of the UN Food Systems Summit, which we are all aware of. And this is particularly relevant to the subject of this meeting today. First of all, I would really like to thank Switch Asia, the European Union, and especially the Sustainable Consumption and Production Group for actually inviting us to speak here. Now, what I wanted to start off with by simply saying, and the moderator referred to it, that it's not often that food is front, left, right, and center of the agenda at any time. And the last food-related summit was sometime in 2005, I think, when we had 15 years after the World Food Summit. So this is a year, and particularly in the light of the impact of COVID on food, agriculture, and livelihoods, this is the year to put it back center stage for the development on the development agenda. And therefore, all those of us, I'm sure many of us here, are working with countries, following their national food system dialogues, and getting involved in many ways. And we are actually having the chance to not only hear from various stakeholders, but actually hear different perspectives on what the food system is about and what actually needs to change. And this is particularly true in a region like the Asia Pacific. This is where I work, where the countries are very diverse. We've had, but at the same time, this has been the economic engine of the world. It has shown the maximum economic growth over the last 2 decades. And yet, surprisingly and somewhat paradoxically, has some of the key problems associated with food systems which are not working very well, notably multiple burdens of malnutrition, unequal distribution, and inequality among many countries, and the other disparities. Therefore, when you look at the overall food system, and I just don't want to complicate this too much for you, I just want to point out a few features.
First, on the left side where you see the circles, you actually see the interrelatedness between natural elements, which is air, soil, water, climate, between societal elements, which is organizations, policies, infrastructure, socio-cultural issues, and then the core system, which is a result of the interaction between natural elements and the societal elements. So this includes, among other things, access to natural resources, the labor, knowledge, inputs, all of it, and then the entire food chain from production to consumption, which leads to both to healthy diets for the people, as well as a reduction in poverty, which in short is SDG 2 and SDG 1. Now, what you can see that due to this interrelatedness, we have massive numbers of people, billions of them literally over the world, who are involved in interacting with each other, with nature, with societal elements, with policies, and among themselves. And that is what makes the food system so complex. The second thing is that this food system should be resulting in sustainable outcomes. It should be resulting in nutrition and food security for all the people who are using it. But then what happens is we do see that there are diversities in terms of economic impacts, environmental impacts, and social impacts. Not all of them are equal, and not all of them happen at the same time in every country. There are trade-offs. And that's because if you want to increase production, which is the usual, or so far has been the normal policy response, increase production of food, that leads, while it leads to increased availability in some ways, it also leads to increased malnutrition because it affects the balance of the food on the plate. It also leads to increase in greenhouse gas emissions, that's the increasing the carbon footprint. Sometimes it also leads, in many countries, as we have seen, a loss of natural resources. Water scarcity is getting to be an acute problem in Asia and the Pacific region. And then this leads to social and economic, social impacts. That includes, among other things, unrest, as well as the loss of jobs and the loss of cultural traditions, traditional diets, because we are relying on more on food which is coming in from other places. A good example is the Pacific Islands, where a lot of the local food systems have been affected by increased imports of processed food. And so one of the responses there, both to COVID and for long-term food system transformation, is to actually develop those, bring back those traditional foods and then develop those value chains. Value chains, therefore, are an instrument of food system transformation. They can actually lead the process, and they're a viable way because they affect not just production, but they also affect livelihoods positively and give people a chance to derive adequate incomes from their occupation. And at the same time, you can actually drive both resilience and a response to climate change. So I will just stop sharing the screen now, and then I can just do the rest of it by speaking. So in this connection, FAO works with a number of countries in the region. We've got value chain projects across, starting from Afghanistan in the west, Pakistan, Nepal, Philippines, Indonesia, Bangladesh, and right down to the Pacific Islands. And some of the things that we stress through our projects are particularly on what the previous speakers referred to as part of the Green Deal. And that is the essentially the inclusion or the introduction of agroecological approaches that promote fair solutions based on local needs, resources, and capacities, on strengthening local value chains or shortening them so that they become more efficient and there's lower food loss and waste. One of the things we have seen in COVID, as the longer the chain, the more difficult it has to become. It became to access the market, and that's where we have some reason, at least for perishables, to shorten the chain. The second thing is also to introduce more approaches that increase diversity on the ground. Two very serious diseases, well, actually one pest, which is the fall armyworm of maize, and one fungal disease of banana, wilt, are essentially widespread globally and widespread in Asia and the Pacific because of the lack of diversity. Almost, I think 95% of banana production comes from the variant of just one variety called Cavendish. Likewise, in maize, there is overall genetic uniformity almost all across, and that's making it vulnerable. So to bring in the concept of biodiversity to exploit genetic resources which are there. We have projects, for example, in Philippines, which will conserve seeds of local varieties, indigenous varieties, as well as indigenous practices, cultural practices that help to combat the pest attack, at the same time to have varieties which are resistant, but at the same time they are productive and they can provide income for the people who are involved. Within, and in the important concept here is of course on circular economy, which again is an important aspect. We would like the waste of one sector to be the fuel for another, and therefore here it can help address the global food waste problem and make food value chains much more efficient. And we have engaged, or actually currently engaged in a dialogue with the European Union on actually participating or in the Green Deal and actually making changes. In fact, FAO as an organization released yesterday its environmental sustainability strategy that was released by the Director General himself. So lastly, we stress a lot on innovations and technologies that can play a key role in introducing in greening value chains and greening agriculture. So whether they are at policy or at actionable levels, such as linking producers, consumers through participatory guarantee schemes, local producers markets, denomination of origin labeling, community supported agriculture, and so on. And then also from the other side on using digital technologies. So whether it's actually traceability in countries like Mongolia, following the livestock, or whether it's using technologies such as hydroponics, drip irrigation in countries like Bhutan and Bangladesh, or whether it's actually using drones for visualization and looking at the effect of climate change, looking at the effect of natural disasters and hazards, and seeing and planning in advance for a green recovery and for resilient livelihoods. We use all these approaches. In PNG, in Papua New Guinea in particular, we have a very big project actually funded by the European Union to the tune of $100 million, where the agriculture economy virtually of two of the provinces there is being transformed, not just through our technical interventions, but also through the building of infrastructure such as roads, warehouses, cold storage, and so on, that can actually help both to conserve as well as to increase and both domestic and international trade. So and we have a lot of collaboration with UNEP who will follow. And just to say two things to finish. One, UNEP and the UNEP, FAO, WHO, OIE will be holding the World Food Safety Day webinar on the 3rd of June. That's for the Asia Pacific. And then on the 10th of June, we are again co-organizing under the leadership of SCAP, the Asia Pacific Food Systems, Regional Food Systems Dialogue on the 10th of June. So I will send the organizers of this meeting the links to both these events, and I hope all of you will join them. So I thank you again for inviting FAO, and I look forward to hearing and learning from all of you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Mapuri. And you already made an excellent link to the next speaker in UNEP, to James Lomax, Food Systems and Agriculture Advisor in Biodiversity Land Management Branch of Ecosystem Division of UNEP, but who is also the secondee to the UN Food Systems Summit Secretariat. Mr. Lomax, please, the floor is yours.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. And first of all, let me extend my thanks to Arab and his team for inviting us here. And I always like, if you like, to come at the end of the panel or the discussion so I can actually react to what's being said. And I think we're at a very critical time when it comes to food systems, bearing in mind that the issue of food systems and I think SEP very much outdates the food systems considerably. And one of the things that I would say is that taking a food systems approach is very much the embodiment of what SEP in the food and agriculture sector actually means. So as I say, as has just been said, I work for UNEP, but I'll focus more on the work that we're doing with the summit, because I think it'll help to sort of give that global picture about what's happening on food systems. But it's really important to to note that food systems really came into common vernacular really about 5 to 6 years ago. And one of the processes that kind of created this change was, in fact, the Marrakesh process that turned into the 10-year framework of programs on SEP. So it's really interesting. I've kind of seen it go from something where we focused on parts of the agriculture and food sector to really looking at the systems. My intervention will be brief. I will not use slides, but I want to make 3 main points. The first point really is that what's coming out of the summit now, and this is very much the push from New York, from the SG himself, is that food systems can accelerate a country's achievement, a country's efforts in achieving all SDGs. There is not one SDG that is not touched by taking a food systems approach. This is really important to note, and the summit is very much there to accelerate our action towards achieving Agenda 2030. It also helps us to embed food systems approaches in the Rio conventions, in climate change, in biodiversity and desertification. This again is critical. So what does a food systems approach mean? I think there are 3 main reasons, if you like. First of all, it's the first time that we in the food and agriculture sector are starting to connect consumption as a driver of production. This is really important. And this allows us to understand really the connectivity between how we eat, what we eat, and how we produce and how we manufacture and process our food. That's the first thing. The second point is that agriculture systems do not have to be negative. They can be positive. They can be carbon zero, or even carbon negative, and they can be nature positive. And there's a real movement coming out of the summit that's talking about how we can create that switch, using switch, for example, is a great word for this. And then the third point that we need to focus on is this issue of policy, joined up, interconnected policy. If we do not join the dots at the country level, then we will not be able to affect this systems transformation, which is, if you like, the main aspect that's coming out of the summit. Now, the summit, and let me get to my third point, the summit itself has 2 main elements to it. The first one is around ambition, around real systemic lock-ins that are preventing the good work, I think, that FAO has highlighted, the major ambition that I think is there in the farm to fork strategy that was highlighted before by our EU colleagues, is that these issues need to be elevated. There has to be ambition around things like subsidies, not just in the EU, but outside. There has to be ambitions around, very high ambitions around greenhouse gases, biodiversity targets, bringing in obesity and malnutrition as the same side of as another side of the coin when it comes to undernutrition and stunting. So it's about bringing in ambition on some of these major lock-ins that are preventing transformation from actually happening. And this is, I think, a really important point when it comes to value chain approaches, because this is where we can address some of the power issues that are prevalent when it comes to our food systems. And then the second point, and I think this is something that I really want to stress, is that what makes this summit unusual is that it's not just your classic tracks with your action areas and your clusters and coalition, but there are now, as we speak, I just got an SMS, 130 plus countries that have agreed to undertake national sustainable food systems summit dialogues. Now, this is massive, and Arab, I see you on the screen. If you remember, we started this idea of roundtables on SEP on food back in Africa in 2012 as this idea of bringing people together, seeing that dialogue and bringing different ministries and stakeholders together would automatically bring connectivity eventually when it comes to policy making. Well, this is happening, and I think this is a huge opportunity for us as as the UN, as country teams, those that work at the normative level, to really lean in and make sure that this really starts to bring SCP to life at the country level. Because you cannot change systems, don't change the systems. It's people that change the systems, and the systems that can be changed are at the country level, not at the global level. So that's where we are, Arab. I would urge all the stakeholders to really engage in regional. So our FAO colleague talked about the regional one, which is fantastic. And one of the jobs that I'm doing actually at Arab, you'll be surprised to know, is that Inge Anderson, the ED of UNEP, has put me in charge of running the UN system response to the summit. And that is a fantastically energizing yet complicated job. But it also puts the UN system, if you like, in a fantastically influential position as we go to the summit, when we say, right, what do we need to do, and what do we have to do at the country level, because it's the context specific issues that we have to bring forward. Now, Arab Chair, I'm very sorry that I wanted to speak for 4 minutes, but I spoke for 7. Apologies, but I give the floor back. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. It was certainly worthwhile. Yes, I mean, it's always positive to hear, inspiring to hear where are we now and how many dynamics are actually happening. And people are the one who are changing the system. So let's continue to the next session to really see some more concrete, and that you nicely highlighted it will at the country level, the change will happen. So I think this beautifully transition to our next session. Let's Zulfira be moderate on the concrete examples, how change is happening on the ground.
Thank you, Miro. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, dear colleagues. Allow me to open the session to concrete session, as Arab mentioned, after beautiful taking the photo. So we're moving to the concrete action. The title of this session is Agri-food in Action, Sharing of Experience from National Support and Grant Project. So please put on the screen our excellent 5 speakers. They are our Switch Asia experts and grant project manager. So our speakers will share various practices gained during the implementation of projects under technical assistance and grant projects. After all presentation on this session will be Q&A session. I suppose very quick because of the time, with active participation from audience and from the speakers as well. So before giving the first floor to the first speaker, I kindly ask you, our speakers, please be accurate with the time, because time is 7 minutes for each. We keep 7 minutes of each speakers. So the first presenter is Mr. Lee Xuan Singh. He is from Vietnam. He is director of National Cleaner Production Center, and he has a great experience on technology transfer, on cleaner production tools implementation, and climate change. So I'd like to give you floor, Mr. Lee Xuan Singh. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Zulfia, for introduction, and thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, all of you. My presentation will focus on the support of the SCP in Vietnam, especially for the agri-food sector. And you know that up to now, in Vietnam, we have support around 14 projects in different sectors, from the production to the consumption. And currently, we have 2 ongoing projects. Luckily, that most of them focus on agri-food. That's the first project is in eco-fair agri-food processing And the second one is a sustainable energy solution for agri-food processing and waste management in rural area of Vietnam. And you can see that the information of project that I show in the slide. And in South Asia, support to Vietnam is not only for the project, but also support for the in terms of legislation and policy. That priority action for the intervention that the South Asia facility we support to develop the national action plan on the sustainable consumption and production to the year 2021 to 2030. That action plan or the strategy already approved in June of 2020 by the Prime Minister. And in that national action plan, the objective is for we as a category in the different periods. For the period of the 21-25, committed to have at least the decrease 5 to 8% in resource and material used for the production sector, such as seafood processing. And for a period to 2030, decrease from 7 to 10% in resource and material. And to prioritize activity include promote cleaner production of eco-friendly product, eco-design, and application of sustainable model and linkage following product life cycle, and develop economic technical form guideline on seafood processing. And based on the National Action Plan, South Asia Facility and South Asia support another activity on the seafood processing guideline. And on the National Action Plan for the period of 21 to 2030, technical support that we focus to support on the Ministry of Industry and Trade. That the ministry who in charge of including the industry and trade to cover all the industry sector and some agri product or agri production relating to the processing. But for the production on cultivation, that is in charge of Ministry of the Agriculture and Rural Development. So the activity of the technical support to MOIT, that is the assessment of the current status of the seafood sustainable consumption production in Vietnam in terms of the SCP practice in the value chain. We focus on the value chain that from the material to the processing and to the trading. And development of the seafood SCP guideline, organization and expert consultation workshop to prepare the training and material, and also collect the comment and feedback from the expert to finalize the guideline. And after that, we will organize the training on the seafood sustainable consumption production for the retailer, supermarkets, and lifestyle, and build capacity and awareness on the sustainable seafood consumption and production in Vietnam. And the capacity building will be we focus for the expert and institutional researcher and also the technician people in the community level. And up to now, we already finished the draft guideline for the SCP in the seafood industry. And the objective of the guideline is to provide the system approach to SCP in the seafood industry in Vietnam, and based on the sustainability issue in the different states of the seafood supply chain. As I mentioned, that we follow the supply chain from the material loading to processing and to trading to the end of user. And to assist the decision maker in the seafood supply chain and policy maker who need to know how to sustainably source, manufacture, export seafood product and apply for the certification scheme for eco-label to enhance the market recognition in their product. That is very important because for the seafood, that is for a seafood product, that is 80% is the export to the foreign country, for example, that mainly in USA and European country, and in that country that they request very high on the high standard on the green level and sustainable certification. So that's why we have to design the guideline how to support the colony to adapt with the requirement from the end user, and also to help the consumer and consumer group to understand about the consumption aspect of the SCB in the seafood industry. The guideline will provide a system approach to the seafood supply chain covering consumption and production, and also guidance on how to consider the environmental impact in seafood processing state, on how to mitigate impact, and propose the knowledge and potential solution for the sustainable consumption in the seafood industry. And the guideline method for the guideline is for collection and multi-stakeholder consultation process will be conducted that we will organize soon. Hopefully it will be in next 2 months, and the training on using the guideline, and also we'll have we thank to the support of the Sweet Asia in the 2 main projects is on pangasius and on shrimp, that we have a lot of real data in the field based on the 2 support project. That project is already done in last year. And so the main point of the draft SCP guideline for consultation is we focus on the shrimp and pangasius industry in Vietnam. That is, as I said, that is 2 main export value product in Vietnam that it will contribute for the more than half of the total value of exported in the seafood industry in Vietnam. And resource use and environmental pollution in seafood production processes, and implementation of resource efficiency cleaner production based on the production area, and also sustainability in other stages of the value chain, for example, in the supermarket and also in the transportation. And on sustainable consumption of seafood in Vietnam, and also some recommendation. And as I said, that the consultation and the training schedule will be organized in June to August, and hopefully that the guideline will be finalized and submitted to MOIT in September of this year. So any question and comment will be welcome later on. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kicksienko. So for the excellent presentation, I think the main result of your activity within the Switch Asia and under the technical assistance is National Action Plan on SCP till 2030. And this document is in both languages, English and Vietnamese. And it's a good result. You insert the seafood system into these concrete targets into this document in terms of resource efficiency and material use. And the second document, guidelines, it's also very excellent results in your activity. Thank you so much. So maybe later on we will discuss a little bit concrete, and maybe audience has some question to you. So moving to the next presenter, it will be Yerbol Orazbekov from Kazakhstan. Yerbol has excellent experience in the field of waste management and biodegradable waste management. He worked in big companies in oil and gas, national and international companies, and realized some project in the field of biodegradable waste for green tourism sector. So now he is working as leader of the Biodegradable Waste Management Association. So please, Yerbol, floor is yours for the presentation.
Dear colleagues, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. in Switch Asia project in Kazakhstan, I'm specialized in waste management. So the topic of my presentation is to the implementation of food and biodegradable waste management system in Kazakhstan. The organization of such a system as an element of a green economy can help Kazakhstan to move to sustainable product and consumption, and especially to develop organic agriculture. For example, to solve the problem of improving soil in cities and rural areas, to increase the use of organic fertilizers, to develop agriculture tourism. Today, about 26% of country's working population is employed in the agriculture sector, and more than 60% of national water consumption is in agriculture. In 2013, Kazakhstan approved the concept for the transition to a green economy. In the concept, special attention is paid to the development. In 2013, Kazakhstan approved the concept for the transition to a green economy. In the concept, special attention is paid to the development of sustainable and highly productive agriculture. And in this area, the main task identified as to increase labor productivity 3 times, reduce water consumption for irrigation. One of the principles of green agriculture in this concept is the minimization and implementation of methods for processing agriculture products, including through the reuse of waste and the production of compost, biogas, and other methods. This is a land degradation problem in Kazakhstan. Applying compost as organic fertilizer can improve the soil without contamination with chemical fertilization. It can also help to reduce the rate of creation of new landfills. The use of biodegradable waste in biogas reactors can help reduce greenhouse gases. Kazakhstan is actively updating the institutional framework. The environmental code has been updated. The law on the production of organic products was introduced. The action of the law is aimed at ensuring the rational use of soil, assistance in the formation of a healthy diet, and environmental protection. A law on the support of renewable energy sources has been enacted, which includes technologies for use of biofuels, including biodegradable waste. The plan for the placement of renewable energy sources included the construction of a number of biogas stations. In Kazakhstan, for today, there is only 1 biogas station with a capacity of more than 1 megawatts. The station is located on the base of a poultry farm and uses waste of the farm. This year, a ban on the disposal of food waste was introduced in Kazakhstan. This measure was taken early, but the country's infrastructure was not ready, so it was decided to postpone the ban until 2021. This year, also, Kazakhstan is starting to develop BREF, Best Available Technique Reference Document. So far, only for priority areas in Kazakhstan means energy and biogas sectors. At the same time, the legislation allows to use BREFs of the European Union. A national project, Жасыл Kazakhstan, which means Green Kazakhstan, is being prepared with plan to build 3 compost sites to 2023 and 7 compost sites by 2025. Next slide. At the same time, as part of the Switch Asia project, we analyze the institutional framework of Kazakhstan in the area of food and biodegradable waste management and identified a number of open questions that need to be resolved for the further development of sustainable consumption and production action plan. As our research has shown, today in Kazakhstan, there is still no sufficient capacity for the reception and processing of food waste. More specialists with practical experience in the field of green technologies are needed. There are not enough economic support mechanisms such as subsidies, exemption from custom duties. The taxonomy of green projects is still in the process of being approved. And there is a need to actively develop or adopt best available technology in the area of waste management or agriculture. So far, the Switch Asia project identified key issues and recommendations based on the European Union's Sustainable Consumption and Production Action Plan and the From Farm to Fork strategy. In the future, within the frame of grant work, the planned recommendations will be implemented. The Switch Asia project plans to develop practical recommendations for improving the management of biodegradable and food waste in Kazakhstan, together with stakeholders such as Minister of Environmental Protection, Ministry of Agriculture of Kazakhstan, local executive bodies and business and non-government organizations. We look forward for further project development and expert support from Switch Asia. Okay. And here's how we can see a model for the development of our biodegradable and food waste management system. From the development of legislative and expert base, construction of infrastructure, active introduction of financial support mechanisms, to the development of the market for products such as compost or biogas plants. We see great potential for the development of a sustainable production and consumption in the agriculture section in Kazakhstan. So thank you for your attention, and I will be glad to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Erbol. So as you can see, Kazakhstan now is on the initial phase to implementation the waste management, biodegradable waste management system. But the positive point is the good legislation landscape, as Erbol mentioned. And I think our help within the Switch Asia program will be to create such infrastructure for appropriate biodegradable waste management in Kazakhstan. Thank you so much, Erbol, and move to the next presenter, Mr. Ujjwal Pokre from Myanmar. Mr. Pokre has currently working as a manager of WW project, Sabawa project, and okay, and please, Mr. Ujjwal Pokre, deliver your presentation. The floor is yours, Mr. Ujjwal Pokre. Maybe give more information on his background, Mr. Ujjwal Pokre background. He is project manager on sustainable production and green finance for the Switch Asia funded Sabawa project. And he has more than 17 years of professional experience, especially in managing and leading large-scale portfolio in the areas of market system and green financing and MSMEs. So, Mr. Ujjwal Pokre, are you ready? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm ready. Thank you very much. Before I start, I need to make a note. In February 2nd, there was a military coup in Myanmar, and this presentation basically comprises activities and achievement before the military coup. Things have changed because of the unrest situation. Very little has been going on the ground. So this presentation will comprise of interventions before February 2021. Yes, Sabawa is a nature or a pure in English. It's a Burmese terminology. We work in food and beverage industries. Why? Because majority of the small and medium industries are food and beverage in Myanmar, and these are considered as also as one of the biggest contributor to pollution. And as WWF, we wanted to save rivers, clean rivers, free-flowing rivers.
I'm very sorry for interrupting you. We didn't see the screen, and I also see it on the chat. No screen, no your presentation on the screen. So
can you see it now? Hold on, I will share it again. Share. Okay. Can you see it? Yeah. Good. So these are one of the biggest polluters. So that's why there is a rationale for Sabawa to implement sustainable production concept, and we have been doing that since 2018, and this is the 4th year of the project. In a nutshell, Tabawa has 4 components: cleaner production solutions. Basically, it supports factories to design, finance, and implement clean and green solutions. The next one is technical skills. It's local market and local know-how on green business service provisions. And the third one is to work with the government on regulatory aspect on clean production and its effective implementation. And the fourth one is green finance, where we have been working with banks and financial institutions to lend green finance to SMEs. Basically, we deal with 3 technologies. One is wastewater treatment plant. Next one is energy efficiency, and the third one is renewable energy. I will give you 3 cases just to make it clear like how we work. Basically, we organize various awareness sessions on sustainable production and identify interested participants or factories from food and beverage center who are willing and committed to invest. And then, for example, this is an example of a dairy factory called Silver Pearl Dairy, and then who was interested to implement wastewater treatment plant. And we started supporting this factory into the water, design of wastewater designs, and also linking them with suppliers and banks. So basically, we have been building capacity of universities, professor to implement tasting and designs of wastewater. Our support principle is we invest in pre and post activities, but the SMEs has to invest on its own during the implementation. This is an example of wastewater treatment plant. I will go to the next case where we have trained more than 12 consultants on energy audits and conducting energy audits. In a similar approach, we identify factories who are willing and interested on energy efficiency applications. We send our national consultant to their factories. We conduct energy audits. We present the energy audit and come up with the implementation plan together with them in terms of implementing those activities, and we do the follow-up. This is about energy audits. And we work with the banks. As I said, we have 4 banks that we have been partnering with, and we have signed MOUs. Each bank has separated a separate fund of 300,000 US dollar 300,000 K as a very specialized green lending and loan. We've been training loan officers. We have developed a couple of green products like leasing, and we have been helping banks link with clients, and also we've been helping banks link with the green technology service providers. So that's how we work with the banks so far. And in a nutshell, our achievement is we have been working with 7 subsidiaries, 2 different regions. We work with 4 commercial banks. Each bank has separated 300,000 US dollar for green investment. More than 15 green loan has been financed by the banks, and we have trained nearly 95 loan officers on different aspects of green lending, SME lending, or cash flow-based lending. We have established a working group with the government, but that work has slowed down because of the coup. We have conducted 3 different kind of energy audits and wastewater treatment training, trained more than 180 SMEs, of which more than nearly 35% are female participants. We have trained 18 local consultants and professors of 2 universities on energy audits and wastewater treatment plant. We have been able to integrate curricula of energy audits and wastewater treatment plant in one of the largest universities in Myanmar. We have conducted 24 wastewater assessment and 15 energy audits. We have developed 12 design and 5 wastewater designs were implemented. So now I go to my last slide, which brings me to the key lesson that we have learned during our different interventions. Sustainable consumption and production is a very, very new concept, not only in food and beverage sector, but in entire Myanmar. And as you know that it's a weak market with weak regulatory environment. Hence, the sustainable production acceptance is quite low. You know, we can't go to the businesses, especially small and medium enterprise, and say, yeah, I mean, let's do this because it's good for the planet, the green is healthy. But, you know, we have to show a concrete business case so that they can uptake it, they are interested. So that's a learning. Buyers and consumer demands create a great pressure for SMEs to switch to green solutions. When we talk about sustainable consumption and production or any sort of green mechanisms or solution, it's a very time and resource incentive process to implement that. Switching to digital format during pandemic is very challenging, not only for SME, also for the government counterparts. Approaching SME through right local partner is very, very important. Otherwise, you will not be connected very well, and there will be less ownership of the intervention that you provide. The entire cycle of implementing greens is time consuming, as I've said. Building local capacities and building service market is very, very key to any sustainable production or consumption solution that we would like to implement. Now, what are the opportunities? There are many opportunities, as we have seen. If reward and punishment-based system is promoted, then there's an immense opportunity for uptake. For example, one dairy is implementing wastewater treatment plant, and his neighbor, another dairy, is not implementing wastewater treatment plant. And based on these two examples, if the one who is not implementing doesn't get rewarded and the one who is not implementing doesn't get punished, then it's very hard to convince SME to implement any green solution. So there's an immense opportunity to promote this kind of mechanism. Stronger regulatory reinforcement on environmental management, sustainable consumption and production through the government mechanism is key. To link and promote mechanisms such as challenge fund, subsidized loan, tailor-made loan scheme. There are few in Myanmar, like Responsible Business Fund, KFW and JICA SME loans. Those kind of mechanisms creates opportunity to scale up green solutions. Promotion of cash flow-based lending, commercially viable green lending, green loans, incentivize investment would create demand for sustainable production solutions. There's immense opportunity working with the financial sector. As the first session, different speaker already said, the key is innovative approach, and there's an immense opportunity for innovative approach because the biggest challenge is incentive, finance, and knowledge based on our experience. These are the biggest barrier to sustainable production and consumption implementation on the ground. And also these are the opportunity, like if we could design an intervention which answers to incentivizing SMEs, incentivizing people, incentivizing government, and providing finance and knowledge, then this opportunity would create basically not only implementation, but also scale up of the sustainable consumption and production applications. Thank you very much. I hope I was in time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ujjwal Pokrem. Amazing results for sharing these good practices among all Asian countries, South Asia and Central Asia and Southeast Asia. So implementation CP2s in food and beverage industry, 5 wastewater treatment plants for dairies company and other companies, and curricula, capacity building, and so on. It's amazing results. Thank you so much for delivering and for sharing these good practices with the audience and with the speakers. So maybe later on will be question to you from the audience. Thank you. So moving to the next speaker. Next speaker is Ludmila Kicksienko. She is working in Central Asia Regional Environmental Center. And she is involved into the project on research for the RIP project for Uzbekistan and for Tajikistan. And Karik is a leader of this of this project, resource efficiency in agri-food production and processing. It's the title of the grant project. So because of the pandemic situation, maybe some activities is limited, but anyway, they have a good start. And Ludmila delivered the presentation and explain us all results already they received and what is their plan on the future. So Ludmila, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will not talk a lot about our project. It is called Resource Efficient. Just a moment. It is called Resource Efficiency in Agri-food Production and Processing, Sustainable, which means that we are working for promoting sustainable consumption and production in agri-food processing supply chain. The next slide. Why our approach of the consortium who is implementing this project, that resource efficient cleaner production is absolutely a part of the value chain because recipe is applicable to enterprises and manufacturing as well as service sectors. You all know that recipe focuses on efficient usage of resources in organizations activities. So making these organizations of the process is more profitable and competitive. Recipe does not accept costly wasting of any resource. It seeks for organizational and technical solutions to save resources. And Recipe looks for no investment solutions in order to improve actual processes with existing technology. So all these principles is followed in RIP project, which is implemented in Central Asia. Next slide, please. Here, just two slides to show examples from other regions, how this resource efficient cleaner production is promoted. So, for example, on the first draw, you see example from India, when during the food processing steam pipeline, it was a source of wastes or hot wastes. Just insulation of this pipeline helped to save heat. And you can see that annual savings only from this very simple activity brings to about $11,000. Efficient blue flame. So just cleaning this burner, second drawing, helps the company in Myanmar again also to save fuel and thus to save money, about 700. The next slide, please. Just everybody knows that just changing the light also brings to savings. But the project in India calculated that in one factory, just saving lights bring annual economic savings of above €1,000. And more costly, but nevertheless also very effective change of dryer. If before the company in Myanmar used electrical dryer, and it was replaced on solar dryer, and thus the company saved money. I will not, next slide, please. I will not explain in deeply this slide and the next one. Here just to show that such approach, which promotes very simple practices, very cheap, they can bring to quite a big results, reduction of sources use. Material consumption was saved on 27%, energy consumption on 23%, water consumption on 33%. So, and the next slide also supports this approach and shows achievements done within another project also implemented in South Asia, Bangladesh and Nepal, called MetaBuild. And again, here you can see savings from using very simple practices. Actually, if you want to know more in details, we can link you with experts in India, and they will tell all details and all calculations and their approach. Next slide, please. I want to just to touch the first findings done within RIP project in Central Asia. Just to inform that the main objective of the project is to promote resource efficiency in agri-food production. This project is working with micro, small, and medium enterprises in the agri-food production and processing. And the main idea, please, next slide. Okay, yes, the main focus, food industry organizations, and in number, the next picture. In Uzbekistan, we will reach at least 325 small and medium enterprises. In Tajikistan, at least 175. At the moment, we already have more in our list of potential target companies, because you know that during project implementation, some companies, they are just lost on the way. Most of these companies, if we group these companies, they can be grouped as following: vegetables processing, just to do pastes, powder, slice, puree, juice from tomatoes, cucumbers, carrot, something from onions. Fruit processing, drying fresh fruit, again producing puree, juice, nectars. Sugar products, brown and white or refined sugar, and dairy products. And for next slide, please. Here I will give a floor to my team member who participated in field visit in Uzbekistan to these enterprises. And here we just list you a very first findings, which were absolutely obvious for experts, RIP experts, and owners of these companies did not notice them. And these examples are, how to say, sources of wastes. Valeria, please, floor is yours.
Hello, everyone again. My name is Valeria. I'm a project manager of RIP project, and it's a pleasure to be here right now and to share with you some initial findings that we discovered in Tajikistan and Uzbekistan during this year of working at RIP project. And as you can see, in my slide, I demonstrate the MSME from Tajikistan. And this is sugar processing production. And after one simple observation of the areas of production, we and our experts from India, Austria, and Germany, thanks a lot for them. They identified that there are several areas for SCP implementation in this production. As you can see, I demonstrated in the slide that this compressed air system, it needs to be relocated, and sugar grinding machine should be also take care of in order to make sure you collect the spilled sugar powders for other purposes. Then it is very interesting that light can be fixed in order to save money, and heat losses can be also deducted by implementing the CP practices. As Ludmila showed previously in the first slides, for example, there can be installed new pipelines for such thing as heat loss, and all of these implementations, they will be done in those MSMEs. We currently working on them, and as an example, I can show you the second MSME in Tajikistan, which we also visited and identified several areas of work as well. For example, motors of the at the production, they also need to be checked, and some details should be tightened and replaced. Also gas stove, it's very important to make sure that you use and clean gas stove correctly in order to save the resources in your production. Of course, the similar issues with the lights, they all use inefficient lighting, which is a trouble for them because they lose a lot of money. So this will also be fixed. Again, heat losses and water leakage. Those are very simple stuff that we observe, but very important, crucial, because if we implement SCP practices on them, we will for sure save money for those SMEs. And this is our goal, to make sure that we reduce resources of usage of resources, and of course help MSMEs to save and become cleaner. The next slide is examples from Uzbekistan. They are very simplistic at this slide, but anyway, it's very obvious. For example, at those pictures, you can observe that working area, it doesn't have sufficient lighting, so it makes working conditions very hard for people who work there. So this should be improved in order to reduce spoiled production and all misconducts in the production from personnel. For example, in the second picture, you can see just simple corridor area, and unnecessary lighting is installed there. So the production and the company is constantly losing money by just using this unnecessary lighting there. And third image is very obvious and very evident that needs to be fixed. And then again, it's inefficient burning of gas and black soot on the vessel and the orange color of flame, which means that the company is losing resources by using this stuff. And the next slide, again, example from Uzbekistan. I don't think I have enough time to continue, but again, we can also see and observe that there are many issues in this company. For example, I will touch up on the third slide picture. You can see that side walls of the oven was no, the second slide. I'm sorry, I misplaced the picture. So actually image number 2 is picture number 3, and bags on the floor stored directly on the floor and with no gap from side of the walls, which cause spillage of this flour and bad production in future. So this is all from my side, and this is several examples from Tajikistan and Uzbekistan that already been in process and implementation, and as well, when we have more results, we will be happily sharing it with you. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Valeria. So we wanted to show very practical things, how
Yes.
How to say it, enterprises can contribute to this value chain. You understand, if on the level of enterprises loss are reduced on 25-30%, it means that it will reduce and cost of production and accordingly the cost of the products. So that's all from our side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear ladies, Valeria and Ludmila. So I can say that not only Tajikistan and Uzbekistan has a potential for in agri-food, also in other Central Asia countries, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan as well. So I think your project will be really piloting for the Central Asia region, and I suppose we will achieve a good result during the implementation, because there is so the year for ending the project is 2024, as I know. Yes. So,
yes, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you so much, and go to the next presenter. So he is Mr. Abhijit Dabola from the India. Mr. Abhijit Dabola so has 12 years of professional experience in organic value chain development and improving market access for small producers, institutions. And I also suppose he delivered a very attractive, very excellent presentation on Bhumika project. So please, Mr. Abhijit, Abhijit Dabola. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Zulfira. Thank you, everyone, for giving us this opportunity. So, Bhumika is basically off Earth, and we are a project which is promoting sustainable consumption and production systems for safe and organic foods in India. So, the project goes through three different approaches: push, pull, and policy, basically. So we try to push organic products in the markets by creating consumer awareness and making products available in the markets. We create pull of the organic products by certifying farmers and helping them practice sustainable production practices. And we also closely work with advocates, policy makers and governing institutions to make favorable policies for the sustainable foods production. So this approach is implemented in a manner wherein we consider all the stakeholders like farmers, retailers, and consumers. Consumer being at the center, we try to select retailers around retailers and then target the consumer areas around those retailers, and also try to connect those retailers with the farmers nearby so that the value chain can be established easily and the flow of the commodities are smooth. So project works with 3,000 farmers right now, and it has already involved 40 retailers, which also includes 5 restaurants which are our partners right now. And project has almost touched around 300,000 consumers in 4 major cities: Delhi, Udaipur, Jaipur, and Banswara in Rajasthan. So there are different campaigns and different events which were organized to create awareness among consumers, targeting different demographics, different demographic consumers. So basically, we worked with residential welfare associations, wherein most of the women are targeted. Then we also work with schools where children are targeted. We work with corporates and hospitality industry. We also have partnered with health clubs as well as consumer groups to conduct the events. Besides this, our retailers and our farmer producer organizations attended different exhibitions in India. With the pandemic, we have to change our approach from last year. And now most of the events are being organized online, as well as even the value chains which we implemented physically, wherein retailers used to display the products or farmers used to supply the products with the regular supply chains. Now that has changed dramatically. And how we adapted to the situation is that we started promoting e-commerce for the retailers. We helped them to promote their websites through our platforms, through our events, online events. We started conducting online events for all the consumer education events, and then we also started digital markets for the farmers. Basically, Bhumika was known for promoting its farmer markets. We used to conduct around 15 to 16 farmer markets where in the different cities. But now we have started promoting digital markets wherein farmers contact consumers and supply their produce directly through the door delivery. Capacity building and handholding of FPOs for e-commerce is right now we are into, and we are trying to help them in develop their brand, develop their logos, develop their trademarks. We also addressed pandemic through awareness and nutrition kits, which were supported by Switch Asia. So these are a few of the glimpses of the work which we did during the pandemic situation. And here are a few of our achievements. So right now, project is working with 3,000 plus farmers. We have 40 ecopreneurs and 5 restaurants as a partners. We are in 7 cities right now, and 15 different organic food value chains are promoted, which includes millets, pulses, and different kinds of grains. Right now, Bhumika has touched more than 300,000 consumers. We have educated these consumers, and now even we are tracking their behavior, and we could say that more than 20-30% consumers are now repeated consumers at our retail partners. We could also bring in some policy changes wherein state government of Rajasthan have issue the notice to the schools and ask schools to develop their nutrition garden, which will be organic, and also that food was made part of midday meal scheme in the schools. The entire approach was recognized by FAO, and it was promoted through the book called Enabling Sustainable Food Systems Innovators Handbook. Thank you. Thank you very much. I guess I saved some time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Abhijit Dabola, for the presentation. So I think you achieved a valuable project result. So it's amazing. More than 3,000 farmers have received PGS organic certification. It's a big result within the project. And develop value chain for specific products and create nutrition gardens at the schools. So it's so I put 3 points, very valuable points during your presentation. So thank you so much. And I think it's a point for sharing these good practices among the consumers and among the producers in agri-food. So now move to the session 3.
Voilà, so the final session, basically the idea was we gathered 6 experts with different field of expertise to hear their view, basically how to drive green recovery through SAP practices and sustainable value chain approaches, with the accent to a way forward. So that the idea of each speaker will have 3 to 4 minutes, present their views, and then after, of course, we engage into the Q&A and some more interaction. So let's start immediately with Ms. Chamar Wonsganga, who is a Senior Regional Coordinator of the Asian Sustainable and Agri-Food System Project. Please, floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity for me to join this interesting event and also being a panelist of this session. So I'm from GIZ. I'm based in Thailand. So today, then I just would like to share our experience on promoting agri-food system. So based on the regional project, Asean German project that we have been implemented for 6 years. Okay, I just would like to show you. So I'm working in agriculture and food cluster of GIZ Thailand. Under our cluster, we have about 20 plus projects that we are working to promote sustainable agriculture. And there are a number of variety. We are working on agri-food and agriculture. We can with fruit, vegetable, rice, coffee, coconut, and also oil palm. So then today I just would like to focus on agri-food project that we have been implemented. So first, then this is based on experience of the ASEAN German project on sustainable agri-food system. So the issue and challenges in the ASEAN region, you may be aware that so far in the past 10-20 years, there was rapid economic growth in ASEAN. And also population increase, then there is a need on overall demand of food and agriculture product, not but also for safety product, safety and quality and diversify of demand. And then the region recognize challenges faced in agriculture due to it turn to the land for food to non-food production and impact of natural disaster, particularly climate change, urbanization, migration of labor from rural area. Those kind of things are the challenges. And also then achieving food security has been a forefront agenda of ASEAN, and food agriculture is remain strategic sector of the region. And the sector provide besides food, but also it's provide means of livelihood, major source of employment, income, foreign exchange earning for a large population in ASEAN. And then to realize the food security, there is overarching policy framework on ASEAN Integrated Food Security Framework, and now they also have vision of ASEAN cooperation in food agriculture. And also they want to contribute ASEAN into sustainable development from food security, and also food agriculture contribute to implementation of sustainable development goals. And then challenges still remain how agriculture can be developed in line with this policy. Therefore, sustainable agri-food system offer empirical experience and perspective for the future. Then based on that, we develop the ASEAN agri-food system with a common understanding that we adopt food system concept into sustainable agri-food system, which is collaborative and partnership approach, and integrate several components, economic, environmental, and social well-being, and also recognize the philosophy and also wisdom that implement at the national level in many countries in ASEAN. And with a general characteristic, which is producing safe and quality products, accessible and affordable, support livelihood, and also address social and environmental responsibility, as well as share resources, benefit, and risk. Then based on this, we develop a concept as well as initiate this ASEAN project. This ASEAN project on sustainable agri-food system, this is with the objective that we support ASEAN member state or ASEAN 10 for them to enable to implement the ASEAN Integrated Food Security Framework, which is the overarching food security framework and its strategic plan of action to promote sustainable agriculture production at national level. And this is fourth phase is 4 years from 2014 to 2017, and we have extension for 2 years, 2018 to 2019. The approach that we implement this project, there are 3 approaches or intervention. The first one is to bring policy support. Under this approach, we develop a regional coordinated policy strategy and dialogue concept to promote sustainable agri-food sector. And in addition, the second approach, we promote production technology. Under this approach, we promote the use of sustainable input, such as biological plant protection and fertilizer, and also crop management practices through capacity development. And similar important, the third approach or intervention we promote sustainable cross-border value chain in collaboration with the private sector. So based on first 4-year implementation, we came up with the achievement which we consider as the principle and recommendation based on the promotion of sustainable agri-food system. The first principle based on our experience, besides we developed the ASEAN guideline on biological control, the use and trade of biological control, as well as ASEAN guideline on soil and nutrient management, as well as a number of knowledge products. We conclude that there are 4 principles to achieve sustainable agri-food system in ASEAN. The first one is we have to make sure that policy framework link into the cloud. This is a multi-level approach, and principle 2 is foster multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral partnership, including public, private, and people partnership. And principle 3, we have to ensure that inclusivity, sustainable, and resilient of value chain. And the last principle, we have to build leadership and capacity for stakeholders so that we can achieve sustainable agri-food system. And the last 2 project phase in 2018 and 19, this is about promotion of the crop insurance. Crop insurance is considered as the risk management tool in addressing climate change and also natural disaster based on 2-year implementation. So we came up with the policy recommendation that we submitted to ASEAN with regard to regional cooperation, recommendation for countries that they are in the initial phase of implementation, and recommendation on the pricing and product design of the crop insurance. And the last part is the recommendation on program implementation at the national level. So those are the first project on sustainable agri-food system, and the successor project that we are implementing now is the ASEAN German project on promotion of sustainable agriculture value chain, or we call in short ASEAN Agri-Trade. So this project currently implementing since 2020, and we expected that the project will be last until 2023. So under this project, our objective is also would like to improve the framework condition for the implementation of sustainable standard in agriculture value chain within ASEAN region. So currently we are promoting implementation of the good agricultural practices and also organic standard of ASEAN. Then under this, the area of support, we will enhance the cooperation between ASEAN body and private sector, which are policy level and also private sector. And we also addressing gender mainstreaming in relevant ASEAN policy framework document. And also the third area is about we will improve prerequisite for private sector engagement in 4 countries, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam, which is the national level implementation. This will also include addressing climate smart agriculture practices. And the 4th area is about...
Ganga, excuse me to interrupt you. Could you please wrap up, because we are
okay.
heading quite behind, and you are quite over 4 minutes. Slide.
Yes, just in a second. The last 2 area is about conduct awareness campaign on to promote the health and ecological benefit, including climate benefit, when we implement sustainable agriculture product in Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam. And the last area is we compile lesson learned for implementation and then sharing and exchange among the 4 countries and also to ASEAN 10. Then I will not go into detail. Under this ASEAN Agri-Trade project, we also have the Innovation Fund in ASEAN for application by the private sector. So under this Innovation Fund, it has to be innovative and also addressing climate issues and also a number of area that it has to be innovation, inclusive, replicability, and scalability. So I think this cover a relevant issue in line with the SCP project, and also this can be area for cooperation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for this Asian perspective. Please, if you can proceed with Mr. Marcus Gover, the Chief Executive of the WRAP. Please, floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me to come and talk to you this afternoon, where you are. This morning where I am, I'm afraid, so I will not be able to stay very much longer. I'm sorry about that. But so I'm Marcus Gover. I'm the Chief Executive of WRAP in the UK. We are an international charity that brings governments, businesses, citizens together to create a better world. We specialise in helping people make the most of the precious resources of our planet, and our vision is a world in which resources are used sustainably. And we're working in 20 countries now to drive change there. But today's about the global food system, and we have to fix our global food system. We won't fix climate change, we won't stop biodiversity loss if we don't. The impact on the planet of producing food is staggering. Some 30% of total greenhouse gas emissions are created by food production, and 70% of the world's fresh water is used for agriculture, and 80% of global biodiversity loss is caused by food production. So the way we produce food really is one of the biggest sustainability issues that we face as a planet. But on top of this, we throw away a third of the food that we produce, despite there being around about 1 billion people in the world who go to bed hungry every night. And that means we've thrown away a third of the energy, a third of the water, a third of the labour that went into producing the food. It also means that a third of that biodiversity loss was for nothing. In fact, we're talking about an area the size of China to grow the food that is thrown away every year. And the greenhouse gas emissions associated with producing that food that we waste, around 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Now that is much greater than the emissions from global aviation, for example. So if we want to deliver a net zero food system, we've got a lot of work to do. I want to tell you a bit about what we've been doing in the UK on this and how we're spreading that to the world, though. In the UK, we're talking about 25% of the carbon footprint of the UK being food production. So that's 150 million tonnes of the carbon dioxide equivalent down to food production. And a third of that is imported food, a third is primary production, and about a quarter is the supply chain. So we know that around 80% of the greenhouse gas emissions are associated with supply chains in the UK. So to get to net zero, we've got to decarbonise our supply chains, and that's where we have to focus. But we're still throwing away a quarter of our food that we produce in the UK. And that is also a big impact. That's around 25 million tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent associated with that. And again, we know where the food loss and waste occurs in the UK. In fact, 30% of it's the supply chain, but 70% is in the home. So to tackle food loss and waste in the UK, we've got to tackle supply chains, but we absolutely must tackle food waste in the home. And that's the way we've constructed things. So we know that to win this food waste fight, we've got to work together. We've got to bring together businesses, borders, across borders, organisations and government all together. Nobody can do it alone. And we've got a blueprinted voluntary agreement public-private partnership model that does that, that brings together businesses and governments to drive system change. And in the UK, it's something called the Courtauld Commitment. And that's a trusted platform where the whole supply chain can come together with government to drive change. And we've developed a common methodology to measure food waste, but also to calculate greenhouse gas emissions, which means we can apply the principles of target measure act, which means setting a target, measuring waste or measuring and calculating emissions, and taking action at scale to get change. And by getting businesses who together put over 90% of food on the UK tables to commit to change, to be part of that agreement, we change the whole system. Tackle the home, though, we combine it with a citizen behaviour change campaign called Love Food Hate Waste. And that targets those who waste the most food, the most wasted food items, and the critical behaviours. It's complemented by a programme aimed at changes in food packaging design and labelling to make it easier for people to buy what they need and use what they buy. And this systemic approach, we've managed to reduce food waste by 27% in the UK. And we're also directly tackling greenhouse gas emissions in the supply chain. It's only through this systemic change that you can win this fight. But having proven this in the UK, we're now adapting it to deliver results around the world. And we launched in March of this year El Pacto por la Comida in Mexico. We're also supporting programs in Australia, South Africa, the Netherlands, the US, Germany, and Indonesia. And a lot of this is supporting the Champions 12.3 movement, where we're trying to halve world food loss and waste by 2030 in accordance with Sustainable Development Goal 12 Target 3. But we have to tackle food loss and waste in supply chains to do that. We've got to decarbonise the supply chains. Target Measure Act is the way to do it. And if you're talking about supply chains, we're really talking about Scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions. We've got to make it easy for citizens to reduce food waste as well. We've got to do that across the world. This work's going to be critical as we approach COP26. And we desperately need more investment in measures to tackle food loss and waste and greenhouse gas emissions from food production to do that. So really, I want to call on governments, international organisations, trusts and foundations to prioritise this area, to prioritise funding it and getting more action to get change. So thank you very much for listening to me today.
Yeah, many thanks, Marcus. It was indeed a clear call for action, joint action, systemic approaches, and you already actually 26 reduction of the waste, food waste is actually quite remarkable. So it's possible to do, and certainly way to replicate, to work together further. Thanks a lot. So the next speaker would be Mr. Plai Pirom, who is the project manager of the Sustainable Consumption and Production in WWF Thailand. Mr. Pirom, please, floor is yours.
It's my pleasure to contribute to this important consultation meeting. I'll share some thoughts, lesson learned, and case study based on the localized SCP project implemented in the region. Agriculture in developing countries like Thailand is characterized by dual value chains operating in parallel for the same products, one informal or traditional and the other formal or modern. This duality has been accentuated by the explosive growth of modern retail markets, and it can be difficult for smallholder farmers to access markets or otherwise going through middlemen, which often resulted in a low margin for them. Hence, a frequent concern is to find ways to integrate small producers in more modern value chains. This is what we have focused. So there are some challenges that we faced as a result of rapid globalization, which lead to the new consumption, production, and distribution patterns. The value chain then often controlled by multinational or national corporations and retail markets are capturing dominant share of agri-food system in developing regions. In addition, when the food production is predominantly agrochemical and monoculture, this has resulted in falling food system exploitation and endless debts faced by smallholder farmers. In this current food system, the value chain is responsible for one of the largest greenhouse gases emission sectors and ecosystem degradation, especially to soil. This primarily from the land use conversion, deforestation, in responsible livestock management, soil degradation, and synthetic fertilizers and herbicides and pesticides applications, then their distribution and refrigerations. So our approach is taking from a wider perspective, what we call food system approach, which is incorporate SCP to address these challenges with a more systematic, holistic perspective, and one of the value chain to the other, but also beyond, meaningful of interconnected elements and actors in the wider system. This food system approach is necessary to break the silo that to instead deliver coherent, integrated policies and measures. It entails the inclusion of actors, particularly underrepresented and vulnerable, and their diverse interests and values in the decision-making and implementation process. Our project is implemented in Thailand and some other Southeast Asian countries called Establish Sustainable Consumption Production in the Food System. We have been working collaboratively with all stakeholders across the food system. We focus and work with smallholder farmers to ensure sustainable production and inclusive in the food chain. We promote community-based enterprises to ensure that those small players who produce food have sufficient return and capacity to survive in the capital market. We implement consumer campaign to promote consumers in taking a part in restoration of our ecosystem, and most importantly, as a key of market transformation, the retail sector can be a key catalyst of food system transformation. We work with the retail sector to ensure that smallholder farmers are included in the value chain. This is few examples that we have worked. Through the multi-stakeholder engagement, we have collectively developed a localized SCP concept for FOR 349, which is the nature-based solution model whose objective is to restore ecosystem, local food systems, resilient communities. We promote agroecology and regenerative agriculture to smallholders to adopt instead their conventional agrochemical method. In this system, plant diversity is designed and managed to improve crop production and reduce harmful environmental impacts. Farmers will be incentivized to switch from agrochemical monoculture towards growing perennial trees, fruits, vegetables, and herbs in a mixed agricultural system. Through the development of a sustainable value chain supported by a retail partner, high-value organic products will be sold at local food and retail markets, generating income for the community and enhancing their livelihood. Farmer markets. Alongside the market transformation, we promote farmers market as a catalyzer for food system sustainability. It brings consumers and producers to meet each other and being connected. We partner with Center Group, which is one of the largest conglomerates in the region, to make trickling a change in retail sector. Xinjiang Farmers Market was launched in 2019. This farmer market is a key part of their creating share value strategy. It provides an opportunity for local farmers to merchandise their output, selling their fruits and vegetables along with other provincial goods in area with central retail outlets. This allows both consumers and farmers to meet and discuss their thoughts and new ideas utilized to improve product development. High quality of food and products in this way supply to consumers, and a stable income is provided for farmers. During this year, 23 Xinjiang Farmers Market outlets were opened, recorded 3,163 farmers in 517 sub-districts taking part, earning a total revenue of around 250 million baht, average 3 times more income for farmers. So Central Retail aims to expand these markets to other provinces throughout the country, which will contribute significantly to the food system restoration towards sustainability and improvement of smallholder farmers' living standards. Here is my last slide, the 4 recommendations to foster transformation to resilient, efficient, and sustainable inclusive food. First one is to integration of food system in other key agendas and mechanisms. Government must also integrate food system in climate and nature agendas as well as into economic recovery and development pathway to build on existing mechanisms. Enabling environment to promote agricultural value chains with a focus on the vulnerable and underrepresented. Foster broad participation preferentially for smallholder farmers, small producers, SMEs. They are the roots of our society and economy, but they are being exploited, vulnerable, and often being left out. We must find ways to integrate small producers into more modern value chains. And last, should be localized solutions. Solutions in complex food systems must be locally relevant and context-specific. There are no one-size-fits-all solutions. It must be mindful of the vast differences across the world food system. Each local context will require a certain mix of solutions. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Mr. Piram. Indeed, you really brought nicely this inclusiveness element into the game, in addition to all the others. Indeed, it's not about only about green recovery, green growth. It's also about green and inclusive and just recovery. And now the next speaker, yes, is Mr. Mani Shankar, who is Associate Vice President of the Intelcap Advisory Services Private Limited.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants. We thank Switch Asia SCP's facility team to provide us with this opportunity to share our perspectives on sustainable consumption and production space in India. My brief intervention is divided into three parts. The first part is around the lessons learned. The second is around non-pandemic related challenges that we are currently facing in India in the agri space. And the third part is around possible areas of collaboration going forward. Coming to the lessons part, if I can please go to the next slide, the first slide, the second slide in my presentation. Our lessons are derived from our recent work on raising a community-owned organic tea plantation and an orthodox tea processing unit, on building a bamboo processing unit, on conversion of waste from processing of fresh chilled chicken to pet food, on a study of 25 farm management information systems across 5 Asian countries, namely China, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand, and developing a strategy for sustainable sourcing of tea, tropical timber, soy, and palm oil in India. The lessons briefly are first that increasing smallholders' income sustainably should actually be at the heart of all the sustainable sourcing and production systems. We have found that in certain cases, this is not happening, and that is not going down very well either with the authorities or with the smallholder farmers. Second is that the smallholders' share in the value chain pie needs to increase significantly. The third one is the interventions need to be crafted with systemic change built into the design right from the beginning. And the fourth one is on deploying human-centric design thinking principles while crafting interventions, which, as that can prove to be that can provide success to us. The challenges that we are facing on the next slide. The challenges that we are facing here, and these are like non-pandemic challenges. First is that the supplies are outstripping demand by a mile on several commodities in India. And this is leading to prices of agricultural commodities nosediving too frequently for the comfort of the farmers. And India will need to export at least 1/3 of its produce going forward, but the Indian exports are not cost competitive at this point in time. So that's challenge number one for us. Second is that the implementation of new farm laws initiated by the government of India stands suspended by the Supreme Court of India. And that is creating policy instability and continued adherence to business as usual approach, which is very debilitating. The third one is scaling agri-tech interventions are seriously hampered by the lack of investments by the private sector in agriculture, infrastructure, and logistics. And the fourth one is that the ecosystem gaps are hampering the promotion of circularity in agriculture space in India. The possible areas of collaboration as we see it, that's the last slide from my presentation. First is around research, advocacy, and action on building and strengthening the circularity ecosystem. Second one is around promoting initiatives on regenerative agriculture, which will go a long way in improving soil quality, biodiversity, and diversity of crops, and in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Third one is around developing, deploying, and scaling practices, technologies, and business models, which are that minimize the input of finite resources. And the last one is around reducing food loss and waste, and ensuring that byproducts from food production, processing, and consumption are recycled back into the food system. So we at Intelcap, in collaboration with Transforming Rural India Foundation, which is a joint venture between Tata Trusts and Pradhan, have launched an action platform for promoting circularity in agriculture, production, processing, and distribution. The platform aims to solve for the smallholders, the planet, the consumers, and for businesses in the agriculture and allied value chains in India. Being an action platform, it has an existing capacity to work with around 1 million farmers, and the platform has the necessary heft to leverage outreach of
state rural livelihood missions across India and the National Rural Livelihood Mission. So this is all that I wanted to share in my brief presentation. I'm happy to take questions at an appropriate time during our interactions. Thank you all for listening. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Mr. Shankar. Indeed, very good practitioner's perspective from India and certainly promising action platform that you mentioned. So we are coming back to Mr. Asan Alimkulov from Kyrgyzstan, who is the consultant, Federation of the Organic Movement, Bio Kyrgyzstan. The floor is yours.
Hello, the participants of this panel discussion of this event. My name is Asan Alimkulov, and I'm representing BioKG Federation of Organic Development from Kyrgyzstan. The topic of the discussion is becoming more and more important from year to year, and it is our pride to share our experience for all of you. BioKG was established in 2012 by 40 stakeholders, companies, and NGOs working in green economy, organic agriculture, and advisory services. As you know, Kyrgyzstan is an agrarian country, and more than half of the population live in rural areas, and agriculture production is the main income source for them. So BioKG had to put promotion and development of organic agriculture at the agenda. So in order to make our interventions on the issues mentioned in the topic, BioKG worked in two fronts. First is, as you see, from top to bottom, creating favorable legal basis for driving organic production and support to those who are at the field to create a sustainable value chains. Since the establishment of BioKG until now, our initiatives gave outputs as designing CONAP, which is Kyrgyz Organic National Action Plan, which has become a roadmap for further steps in introducing organic agricultural production in the country, which led to a long period of designing and finally approving of the law on organic agricultural production. And parallel to this, BioKG is a member of technical team for development of the National Sustainable Development Strategy for 2017-2020, included organic production to this document as a main vector of sustainable development of the country. And from bottom to top, to show the case if all this can be made in practice by establishing organic IMACs or organic villages. So first organic IMAC was established in Talas Oblast only with 120 farmers. And nowadays there are 10 organic IMACs in the country joining 23 villages. So here you can see the dynamic of growth in number of farmers joining organic movement, and this table is the volume of produced raw organic products produced in organic IMACs last year, just the top 7 in volume. So we can frankly tell that since the establishment, BioKG faced multiple obstacles and constraints. We had many lessons learned, and we can share our experience. So first one of the main constraints we faced was the capital and knowledge. So in order to make our idea in life, organic IMACs were started as a pilot project funded by donors. But nowadays, organic IMACs are fully working on self-financing, except for capacity building activities and software used for collecting database. The second constraint we faced was quality assurance of the products produced in organic IMACs. So BioKG introduced alternative quality assurance system, PGS, participatory guarantee system. So this quality assurance system perfectly suits the smallholder farmers' organic production for internal market and guaranteeing the quality by peer review inspections. Nowadays, BioKG developed a mobile software for collection of data of organic farmers, and organic IMACs can easily trace the production. So as I showed at the map, our organic IMACs are located in remote mountainous regions of the country, far from urban localities. And of course, the obstacle which occurred next was logistics. So in order to cheapen the cost price and transportation expenses, smallholders, our organic farmers, united in public unions with centralized management and certification committees. So with a bigger volume of produced products of group of organic farmers, it was cheaper and energy efficient to deliver the products to main market of Kyrgyzstan, to the capital Bishkek. It is the fact that no one will be interested or, let's say, motivated to start or join new initiatives, especially farmers, if they don't see a profit. So BioKG had a number of meetings, negotiations with networks of supermarkets and shops in Bishkek after several experimental tries. Of course, not without failures. Organic IMAX started to deliver their products to specialized networks of shops. So it must be mentioned that on the chain of cooperation with this network, there are no middlemen and farmers. These public unions are working directly with the shop. So what do we have at present? I'm sure all participants are familiar with this figure of FAO, 10 Principles of Sustainable Value Chain Development, which perfectly reveals the topic of today's discussion. I'd like to tell a little on our outputs point by point. So first, economically sustainable. Our farmers are paid additional 5 to 15% organic premium for their products, less out of farm expenses as purchasing farm inputs, fertilizers, chemicals. Socially sustainable organic IMAC project has become inclusive project where there are farmers, including men. More than a half of certified farmers are women. They youth attracted to organic farming from schools and universities, and elderly experienced persons, aksakals, and youngsters managing the public unions and organic IMAX. So environmentally sustainable. So as the name says itself, we are organic. Fourth is dynamic systems based, increasing the number of farmers, increasing volume of products, increasing processing units. Governance centered, organic IMAX have own management units, certification councils, local groups where they discuss and plan their activities. And market driven, the consumers' demand for clean products, and more or less our farmers are fulfilling this demand. BioKG linked organic IMAX with the business structure who share their vision to feed the population with safe food with less impact to the environment, with which we are meeting the next point, vision strategy. And upgrading focused smallholders, united and public unions. The next step will be establishing organic cooperatives where these above mentioned public unions become commercialized, business-oriented, keeping their vision and mission. And scalable federations, annual evaluation and monitoring of organic IMAX, and small research on situation on organic agriculture production show that the demand for organic products increasing, the number of farmers and stakeholders of increasing. We can say with pride, yes, after 8 years of hard work, efforts, organic IMAX are scalable. And multilateral PGA system, which is introduced in organic IMAX, the name describes, needs participation of all stakeholders in the process: producers, consumers, local government, society, business, academy, all of them. And finally, the recognition of our efforts and work. For dedication to the promotion of organic agriculture production in the world, BioKG Federation of Organic Development has become a winner of 2021 Organic Medal of Honor organized by IFOAM Asia. So we are receiving congratulations. Thank you for attention and feel free to contact us if you need more information, and we are open for cooperation.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Hassan. This was really inspiring work that you had presented, organic IMAX, and yes, certainly we'll come back later if there is any questions. And now the last speaker, but not the least speaker, certainly not. It's Ms. Kitika Goswami, who's a Senior Program Manager and Policy Research and Planning Development Alternatives Group. Please, Ms. Goswami, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share the work that Development Alternatives is doing in India. I am a Senior Program Director at Policy Research and working in Development Alternatives, which is a think tank. We are very briefly, I want to tell about the organization. We are a group. We are here in India working for the last 3 decades. We are not working only in India. We are also working part of Africa and Southeast Asian countries. Our main vision is to a world where every citizen have a secure, healthy, and fulfilling life. And we having 3 pillars is that the guiding principle: people, planet, and profits. And our main agenda is sustainable livelihood, where we are actually aiming towards informed and empowered communities with access to dignified and viable income generation opportunities and living a clean and healthy environment. So now coming to the topic of this is the agri-food system transition in India. As we all know, agri-food system is it encompasses the food production, processing, distribution, and consumption. And we in India is actually working as a multi-pronged approach, where we are focusing on the nutrition security, but the three other approaches are agriculture production, economic growth, and health and nutrition. India being an agricultural country and is a small farmers country, and so there's a lot of work is done by the small farmers, and therefore the smallholders and markets through the agriculture value chain is very, very important. So why this transition is important in India? If we may say, agriculture is one of the major contributors to the gross GDP of our economy. We share the agriculture share is almost 20% and highest among the other sectors. Agriculture provides employment of more than 55% of the country's workforce. India is also a major contributor to the global food market, and India's agri export has been increased by 7 times and import by 8 times in the last 15 years. India is among the world's leading producer of the many commodities and is been exporting products from more than 100 countries. It includes Europe, US, and all the Middle Eastern countries and so on. So export, imports, and all the production, the food system and processes actually contribute a lot of GHG emission. Therefore, it is required to pay attention of the localization of the food system, which can contribute to local nutrition and health, economic growth, job creation, inclusive and sustainable development. So there is a few good examples that the government of India has already started working towards the food system, towards a natural farming system. So there are a couple of states like Andhra Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Gujarat, Haryana, Karnataka, and Kerala. They are promoting natural farming a big way. Andhra Pradesh being a front runner, and they are focusing on zero budget natural farming, where they're basically this is an example of the better food production with a potential initiative for sustainable and green recovery. It is adopted by the vulnerable community and smallholder farmers, and especially the women self-help group. And other states are also set up an ambition target for the zero budget natural farming, and they are also doing some pilot scale initiative. Apart from that government initiative, there are a number of civil society organizations, agriculture institutes. They have tested some of the successful initiatives to natural farming, to nature-based solution, to invest on nature-based solution, and so on, and development alternatives being one of them. I'll just very quickly talk about the development alternatives of work here. So this is the country where we are. This is the area which is called Bundelkhand. It is encompasses 2 states and 13 districts. It is a very, very challenged area in terms of environmental, social, and economic challenges. Mostly a semi-arid region. There is less rainfall, and whenever there is a rainfall, it's a small span of time with heavy rainfall. The social challenges are like here the human development index is very low. In fact, lower than the country average. 48% population are below poverty line. Literacy rate is also very low, and population belong to lower social class. And in economic challenges, per capita income is 55% lower than the national average. So there is a 67% population are agriculture based on agriculture, and small fragmented and size of the land holdings. So what we did is to focus on this area, looking at this, the climate environmental challenges. We have for last 2 decades, more than 2 decades, focused on watershed development, sustainable agriculture, climate adaptive planning, and revival of the natural ecosystem, as well as we are also doing the research and policy influence, training, capacity building, and communication and outreach through community radio channels. The thing which I would like to focus here is the sustainable agriculture, which is also part of our sustainable agri-food system. So we are we are actually focusing on intercropping in the small farming, promoting Wadi model, where we are actually, this model talks about the agroforestry, food tree, seasonal crop, local food, forestry, timber species reduction of the forest, and ongoing farming like vermicomposting. We are also like doing a gender inclusive planning. We are also doing capacity development for the financial empowerment of the communities, and also focusing on agroforestry, fodder cultivation, medicinal cultivation, and so on. So these are one of some of these achievement that so economically viable model. We are doing some market linkage for these farmers. We have established a farmer producer organizations. We also established some sort of individual enterprises from the different models that this farmers is doing. So these are some of these achievements: the floriculture, collective selling, FPOs. So all this system is actually to follow the sustainable consumption and production approach within the small holding farmers. So these are the different glimpses of the natural farming system. So the outcome of these initiatives are basically they're addressing everything. It's adding local level livelihood benefits through agriculture, livestock, and so on, strengthening the human, social, and cultural capital. At the same time, ecosystem benefit, that positive biodiversity impact, improvement in the soil carbon storage, contribution in national level targets and commitment. It is actually contributing to all SDGs, almost all SDGs. I mean, 7 types of SDGs: SDG 1 to 6, 8, 12, 13, 15, and 17 is contributing to the land degradation neutrality targets. It is also contributing to the CBD target, conventional biological diversity, and also INDC targets. So while I have done this kind of work, we also have done a valuation in the economic terms, and what this kind of approaches is actually giving the focus on. So there are highest, we have done this in the 3 districts, and we get a very good results on the biodiversity impact, on agriculture impact. So out of the total findings, which is that evaluation of the natural capital, we can see that in these 3 districts, the cost of the program or investment is $500,000 of USD, is coming up on a return within 6 years of time is $69.78 million USD. So similarly, in other states, it's also like 0.2 million USD investment. The return is 32 million USD, and 0.26 million USD investment is coming 29.41 million USD. So this is a huge investment, which is a less investment. Is a return is actually very, very high. So what are these opportunities and recommendations from these small initiative is that we want to say here the results of this economic evaluation showed that the benefits received from the natural farming and the land remediation activities that focusing on natural capital are much greater than the cost and are unparalleled in terms of economic value. The study results actually support the recent report of the World Economic Forum that every dollar spent for nature restoration is actually the expected return is almost $9. So valuation of natural capital results shows that this kind of intervention can play a significant role in helping economies to move towards a green recovery. The study can also provide scientific evidence of policy recommendation of where to invest for land remediation and how much to invest. It can also contribute to the global commitment achieving SDGs, NDCs, LDN, and CBT target. The study also shows that the tracking economic growth in the at the national level, like GDPs or Human Development Index, relevant environmental parameters needs to be considered. A revised framework is required for estimation of the national performance through inter and intra-country dialogue involving relevant stakeholders like academicians, administrative, and research and practitioners. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Goswami. You really showed nicely how actually the environmental different sustainability dimensions, environmental, economic, and social can actually reinforce each other. I think it was a very, very nice conclusion of the panel session. And I mean, clearly that all you panelists nicely depicted the solutions are here, different solutions, variety of solutions and different context, no size fits all, but clearly clearly there is a pathway to the sustainable food system transition. And let us still use a bit of time if there is any questions. I mean, it would be really a pity not to use so many experts here that we have. Should there be any questions from the participants or all the panelists to panelists, please don't hesitate to ask. It can be also in the chat or just unmute yourself, or all options are available. Please, floor is yours. Mr. Nguyen Hong Kong for Oxfam Vietnam, would you like to share your thoughts? Because you put something in the chat, I see.
We discussed with the SMEs in Vietnam recently, and what we identify is the cost of compliance to standards, sustainability standards, food safety standards, including also organic. It's very high. Yes, especially for the small farmers, for the small and medium enterprises, not the large enterprises. So I think at the beginning of the webinar today that talking about the targets of sustainable production with, for example, 25% of the land in the EU will be converted to the organic production or organic farm. I think it's very ambitious, but it's more, I think, more challenging in promoting it in the developing countries. I think including Vietnam too, that organic is good to sustainability, but it's very costly, and the premiums sometimes cannot compensate the cost. So I think for the small enterprises, for the farmers, that they don't have the incentives on sustainability. Their incentives is about the economic benefit, the profit. So they may choose to do the business more conveniently and also more easily. Maybe not to do business with the EU, with the USA or the Japan, Korea, with high-end market, with high requirements. Maybe choose something somewhere more easy. So I think we need to have an approach, or we need to have solutions to really encourage them or enforce those actors to practice sustainable production in the developing countries. I think also there is a role of the government that having more enforcement, maybe by law, regulations, and also to have a monitoring role by the government or the maybe civics, civil society organizations in doing this. Then we can also we can have better implementation or practicing by the private sector, by the farmers in the sustainable production. That's what I want to share.
Many thanks, Mr. Hung. May I drop your question immediately to the panelists? We already heard something about organic movement, etc. Somebody of panelists would like to take the floor.
Maybe hi Ply. I think this question, it's also very how to say, what most people in Thailand thinks also, but our project, it's more about addressing that issue. So there are two issues here. You are saying that organic cost is higher, so I would agree that. In fact, we have proven that when farmers has transformed their practices towards sustainable, organic, regenerative agriculture, it's cheaper actually, the cost of production. But I think that higher cost is probably coming from the certification, certified standards that probably include a lot of cost from the company to audit and things like that. I think that adds a lot of cost. And yes, if we add that cost, it may not be possible for smallholder farmer to pay for the certifications. That's usually there is a middleman to pay for that cost, and then they actually they benefit from that value chain that they develop. But I would suggest that maybe you can try to check PGS. There's one presentation from India project. They also use PGS. It's called a participatory guarantee system. This has no cost. And therefore it will not add cost to the production. So maybe we can start with that certification. And second thing, we probably have to develop a market for that. On one hand, you develop production, and on the other hand, it's also important to develop markets for that. And what we have been trying to do is we do the farmers market. We work with the retail sector to open up for these sustainable products, to change the way that they procure their products. And also, on the other hand, we also have to inform consumers that to promote such products. And interestingly, we have conducted a survey checking the willingness to pay for organic products. And most consumers, they are willing to pay, 5-10% more if it is proven it's safe for them, and if it's go to the smallholder farmers. So all this movement has been there. So my message is just let's keep doing it. There are ways to mitigate those issues, and I think we are on the right track to promote this. What I say.
Thanks a lot. Somebody else would like to enter?
Yeah, maybe I am from India, Bhumika, and we are implementing this organic approach where we are actually certifying farmers under PGS, Participatory Guarantee System. So this is also a Government of India's initiative, wherein Government of India has created a body for certification, and this is where farmers certify themselves. So there's a one group of farmer which goes and visits other farmers group and certifies them. So certification cost is almost like, I will say, negligible, and that reduces significant cost on the products. Second thing is in India, there is a larger movement called zero budget natural farming movement. So we also support these kind of movements. So we try to tie up with these parallel movements which are going on in the field. So this helps farmers to reduce their cost on the farming, and definitely on the product as well. And that helps a lot to consumer as well as retailers. So it benefits actually entire value chain. I don't think that organic adds only cost, but if we forget about first 1 or 2 years, I think then it never adds cost. In fact, it saves cost.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Somebody else would like?
I just want to add with what Vijay just said. So the organic cultivation is, it's a myth that it is costly. Rather, it has a long-term benefit on the soil, on the environment, on the health of the soil health as well as the human health. So put together everything, I think it has a much more benefit rather than the input cost.
Thank you. Thank you. We are already 1 hour over the time, but if there is any question, it would really make sense to still accept it. So please, if anyone would like to ask a question or would like to share something, please do not hesitate. There is still time to do so, but not much.
Yes, Milo, just may I just add? I have a similar idea and also support what our panelist, Mr. Piro, mentioned earlier. We also have the study that about the preference, and also we have to raise awareness campaign on the safe and quality food of the organic product, as well as it will also help the environmental health, increase on soil and also the people. So I think we will have the activities to be implemented in Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam in order to raise the awareness and also promote consumer. But this will be the niche market, And the certificate, it can be group certificate, so that it may be one options that can reduce the cost for the smallholder farmers. And one last point, I think there are a number of issues, synergy from the implementation and experience presented since the first session and also the second session. So I think the organizer maybe consider that there are a number of areas and issue of synergy for potential collaboration, so that this will be add on and also we can promote and also have a lot of input for the food system summit this year. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I see that Mr. Ting Lechuan raised the hand. Please, if you want to take the floor, now is the moment.
Sorry, no, that is there are no questions from us. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. That was yes. Okay, but then this is the last moment for a comment, for a question from anyone still here at the meeting.
Okay, just one observation that we have seen a lot of action on the organic front. We ourselves have been at the forefront of promoting organic cultivation of tea, and we have done organic plantations with farmers, smallholder farmers. But the emphasis on promoting circularity in agriculture production, processing, distribution has not been of the same order. Has not been of the same level of interest. Even sustainable sourcing is not about promoting circularity, which is something which actually looks at the soil. The entry point is soil, and it really helps to improve the soil quality and the biodiversity within the soil. Not to speak of the crop diversity that comes along with it. So I think that that is one area of attention that that needs to be brought to the notice of the funding agencies and other developmental agencies. Circularity will have to be put up in front, and the cause needs to be championed very strongly.
Thank you. Yeah, certainly agree. Yeah. Okay, I think if there is nobody still to enter, I would like to thank all panelists who very kindly accepted and stayed much over time. Apologies for this, and thanks a lot for sharing your views and here with us. So I think it's time up to Arab to conclude.
Thank you very much, Miro. Thank you, Zulfira. Thank you, colleagues. 1 hour more, it's a bit heavy. The agenda was really packed, many speakers. If we have to make a conclusion, I think I will need another hour. But of course, I will not do so. I will basically, and as it was said earlier, we will have to really draw here lessons for the Food System Summit, for other activities under Switch Asia. This is our main purpose. But also how to better manage this transition through sustainable food system with the as it is required. So I will just highlight few, I would say, points, mainly keywords that I take, but of course it just it's not fair to say that it encompasses everything. Something I can do just in a couple of minutes. Food issues is a real global issue. That's it. We are all aware of it, but it cannot be solved by any country or any stakeholder. It has to be done together. We need partnerships to do it in order to be able to move further through the transition towards sustainability, which will secure security, access, affordability, because it concerns all the population and mainly the poor one. It requires an absolute integrated and inclusive approach in order to put all the people together. But this being said, you need to understand what we are talking about. You need to get the right data, the right information, skills, and innovation so as to get the right investment done that can only be supported by a real business case even in the case of organic, if we take the time frame, we can look carefully at the right business case for any approach. There are, of course, trade-offs, but these are manageable over the time if we properly understand the interrelatedness between the different sectors as well as the different actors for that. Food system approach very clearly can help the countries to achieving all the SDGs because it's really a cross-cutting issue, being part of the sustainable consumption and production approach, which is throughout at least 13 of the 17 goals. But it requires dialogues. Dialogues are ongoing at national level. These need to be promoted much further. But you have also learned that on practice, on the ground, the system approach bringing stakeholders, looking at the market, considering the consumption behavior with all the data that are needed is a must to move further to the transition towards sustainability, even though we have until today limited capacities, limited knowledge, and limited effective policies in this context. Closer collaboration with the private sector is a necessity. We cannot just rely on government policies, otherwise they cannot be implemented. So the private sector and mainly the small and medium enterprises need not only to be associated in the preparation, but duly considered when we come to the implementation, helping them to access to the banks, creating collaboration with the banks, as it has been done in one cases where there has been access to green finance by basically informing, enabling, and training the SMEs as well as the banks in order to have this language that is absolutely needed to promote green innovation solution. Opportunities do exist for small and medium enterprises. Solutions are there, but they need to be informed about that. They need to be accompanied in order to do that, because otherwise they consider it as an additional task for which they cannot invest the right time for it. But it is obvious, and cases have showed it, that with just quick assessment of the current system by we can quickly save 20% of the cost by improving energy efficiency, water efficiency, and so on. So already without any investment, 25% of improvement, which means of savings, can be done. And this, we know it in almost everything that we know in the issue of sustainable consumption and production. So collaboration with the private sector, cross-border, in order to be able to effectively decarbonize the system, which is absolutely needed throughout the supply chain, but also at home. When we talk about the supply chain, we tend to focus at home. A lot of the waste is happening at home, and we need there a lot of awareness raising to those consumers on why they should behave properly, not just from an ethical perspective, but also from a health and a financial perspective. So it's only through a systemic change involving all the stakeholders that we can win this fight of the serious problem of food waste, food losses, and so on, by breaking the silos, bringing up the community approach, and promoting the farmers in specific markets for the product. Finally, circularity is absolutely essential so that we really do touch on all the stakeholders, all the sectors, that will make sure that when we talk about sustainability through a circular approach throughout sustainable consumption and production, we can effectively deliver the needed change. And last word, valuing the natural capital is really something that brings high returns and apparently not well understood. And this needs to be promoted, and this could be absolutely a part of circularity. And all together, we can work on this transition towards sustainable food system, and let us all together take this message to the Food System Summit later this year. Thank you very much. Let us keep in touch. Let us see how to better value all this work. Thank you, Miro. Thank you, Zulfira. Thank you, Anne, all my team behind. Thank you for all the presenters, the speakers, and thank you for all the participants for staying with us so long. And sorry again for the more than 1 hour delay. Thanks a lot, and we will keep in touch all together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao, dear.
Thank you. Bye. 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 Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.